Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Show with your host, Jeff Lopes.
We're live in the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on. I'm a baseball guy, so to have Bret Boone on, this is amazing. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
It's going to be a fun conversation today. I always start off by kind of figuring out what you're currently doing all that, but we're going to take a little turn and I want to talk about Bret Boone growing up. Where'd you grow up? Obviously, you have a brother. Do you have any other siblings? And let's talk about your childhood and how you got involved in baseball and how big of a part of your upbringing was it?
Well, it was kind of with my family, it's kind of the family business. So I was born in California. My parents got married real early, and when my dad was at Stanford, I lived with him his senior year. And then dad got drafted, went into the minor leagues, and I spent a lot of time as a real small child. I'm talking 0 to 2 with my grandpa, who had played before my dad. He played from 47 to 59. And as far as the baseball avenue, he was probably, as a young kid, he was probably my biggest influence, and just kind of put that glove and ball in my hand, and the rest is history. But a lot of fond memories as a young kid. Then dad played for the Phillies. He got to the big leagues in 1972, moved us all out to Philadelphia or just over the bridge in New Jersey. So my childhood up until high school was in New Jersey, and I was a Jersey kid, and cheesesteaks and hoagies, and that's the way it was. And we didn't like the West Coast. We didn't like California. We thought it was a bunch of surfers. Fast forward to high school, dad got traded to the California Angels, and he moved the family out to Southern Cal. And I was very resistant. I have two younger brothers.
How old were you at that time, roughly? When your dad got traded to California, you moved out. When your dad got traded to California, how old were you? 13 or 14. So you had a lot of set roots already in Philly.
I did. And I think people understand that wherever you grow up is the cool place to grow up. You think about it as an adult, and we're going to move you to, I don't know, pick a city. It doesn't sound too attractive, but when you're a kid and you grew up and your buddies are there, and I grew up waiting at the bus stop in the snow with my buddies to go to school. When they tell you at 14, hey, we're going to move to Southern California, and you're going to have to find a whole new group of friends. As a kid, you don't like that. No. That being said, it's the best move I ever made from an athletic standpoint, because now I'm in Cali, the weather, I can play baseball year round, and kind of got my legs getting ready to play at the next level, which is the college level, eventually professional level. But I was like typical Jersey kid, very resistant, but it took me about 6 months and going to the beach and seeing the girls out in Southern California. So it changed my mind pretty quickly. Yeah. And I went on to college at University of Southern California, played there for 3 years, studied a little bit, but played there for 3 years, got drafted by the Seattle Mariners, and I was off to my journey. But I have two younger brothers. One I think everybody knows right now he's the manager of the New York Yankees. He's 4 years younger than me. And then I have a younger brother, 10 years younger than me. His name's Matthew. He lives about an hour from me up in Newport Beach, and he runs the turf business. So he installs turfs for soccer fields and football fields. He just did UCLA's practice field up in LA. So
was he involved in baseball growing up as well, I'm assuming?
Yeah, he actually, out of all of us, he was the highest draft pick ever for a Boone. He was I think second round you got to go 10 years ahead of me. So in the 2000 draft, 1997 draft, he was a second round pick with the Detroit Tigers, played 4 or 5 years in the minor leagues, and then they had a bunch of back injuries, but he, as he likes to say now, because he's had so many questions, with our family and what we've done, is he just tells everybody now, I wasn't good enough. What's the next question? Instead of, well, I got hurt. Everybody had that shoulder injury that they couldn't go on with anymore. We hear that all the time. But Matthew's doing great. But I had an unbelievable childhood. I think all of us as kids, we take it for granted. I was growing up and going to the ballpark in Philly and Veterans Stadium with Pete Rose and Mike Schmidt. And that was no big deal to me. I mean, that was where Dad went to work. Looking back on it now, What a special childhood.
I was gonna say, what a special
It was really
childhood.
cool. Really cool.
Do you keep in contact with any of these guys still? Like you said, Pete Rose or any of these guys?
Well, I'm going to have them on the podcast soon, but
Okay.
oh no, those are all, I do. And the circles we run in and the events we do, whether it's a golf event or a charity event, your paths seem to cross as we go through life here. So I'll see a lot of dad's teammates that I know them as a little kid, and now we're both adults, and my career is over. So it just shows how much older we're all getting. But yeah, my ties go from dad's generation to my generation to the current generation. I have a son that is starting his journey. He's an A-ball with the Washington Nationals. So this is his first professional season.
He got drafted last year?
He signed as a free agent. Last year there was only five rounds.
Yeah.
Right. So he was
that was hard for a lot. That was hard for a lot of players, a lot of college guys.
It's really tough. And I feel bad for this generation right now and what they're going through, because they missed an entire season. And now the colleges and the high schools are backlogged because everybody got credit for another year. So you got fifth year seniors butting up against the incoming freshmen.
That's what actually happened to that's what actually happened to a friend of ours, Zach Fascia. He was playing for Purdue. He got bumped back a year, and now he just signed with. He just left yesterday from Toronto, Canada. He just left. He signed with the Cleveland Indians as a free agent as a catcher, but he got bumped back a year. He was done, and he got bumped back a year.
It's tough because not only are you losing a year, but because they were able to tweak the draft, which I don't know legally if you can or you can't, but they did it. So they made it 5 rounds. So if you were, this year, if you're the first pick in the 6th round, you're looking at $250,000, $300,000 signing bonus. Well, last year they had it capped at 20,000. So the economics and the politics come into it now, because now you're thrown into an atmosphere where maybe you would have gotten 300,000 if the draft was normal. You got 20. As an owner, I'm looking at that. Where's my investment? So who gets playing time? So I feel bad for these kids, not only that they lost a full season, but the fact that now they not only have to make up for that, Major League Baseball also cut 40 minor league teams, affiliates out of baseball. So there's 40 times 25. There's a lot less minor league guys out there. So these and
a lot of teams that didn't cut, they just cut players. Like the amount of minor league players that got cut last year was insane.
I think it's going to be an opportunity right now, more so than ever has been in professional baseball, for these independent leagues that are popping up to really thrive, because there's going to be a lot of players that normally are affiliated and playing in A-ball or low A-ball that don't have a place to play. So I think you're going to see some talent go to these independent leagues and kind of legitimize them. Whereas once they were kind of, are you professional? Are you semi-pro? Now it's going to be kind of an affiliate. I think Major League Baseball is reaching out. I think they're going to affiliate themselves with it, which is huge. But if these independent leagues can run efficiently and professionally, I think they have a chance to thrive.
Yeah, I love that. How was growing up with your brother competitively? Were you guys competitive with each other with the baseball? Or that 4 years was the big gap between you two?
There wasn't much competition. You can always beat up on your younger brother. No, because of the age gap, there was never, like I said, I was 4 years older, so there wasn't much competition. So we were never peers until we got to the big leagues. So no, I was more of that big brother that would let little brother tag along with big brother's friends, and Aaron was great. He fit right in. And actually my group of friends really liked having Aaron along because he was a character. And he would sit there and when the games, when the kids were too old and just, he couldn't hang physically, he'd sit on the sidelines and he'd do the play-by-play for the games. And that was Aaron as a young kid. And he was entertaining. And like I said, all my buddies, they liked Aaron tagging along. He was fun. He wasn't a pain in the neck. He was kind of, hey, you going to bring your brother? He's fun. So no competition. I was always that older brother that looked after Aaron, always encouraged him and supported him. And he ended up making a career himself.
I love it. So Seattle, I mean, that was a huge part of who you are. And obviously you see Blue Jays. You have more Blue Jay fans than Seattle Mariner fans there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How was your years in Seattle?
Especially lately.
Yeah. How was your years in Seattle?
My years in Seattle were so special. I just got back from Seattle. I went out there, threw out the first pitch a couple weekends ago. I hadn't been up there in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And
beautiful place.
It brings back memories. I think when you're playing and you're in your prime, not that we do, I think it's human nature to take it for granted, the adulation and the fans and everybody coming up to you and wanting to say hi. I think when you're going through it, first of all, you're younger, you're focused on the task at hand, which is playing baseball and playing it at a high level. But I think the more I get removed from the game, I'm 13 years out now. Yeah. This time I went back to Seattle, and maybe because I'm getting older, but I had a little bit more of an appreciation for it. I could throw out first pitch. I interacted, took pictures with the fans for a couple hours, did a couple shows, and went up into the booth and did some play-by-play on TV and the radio, and just got to really kind of connect. And it wasn't so much of I'm going to get mobbed by all the fans. It was more of, this is really cool that they remember you. And there was an appreciation there. And I think we all get that the further removed we are from the game. So it was a really good experience. I really enjoyed it. Man, my time there was great. I got drafted by them, played there for a year and a half, and then got traded to the Cincinnati Reds. And for the next 8 years, was out of Seattle. I ended up coming back in 2001. And that was just kind of the heyday of Seattle sports. We won 116 games in 2001. Safeco Field at the time. Now it's T-Mobile, but that was just newly built in the city. For the first time, the fans were out of the Kingdome. So they weren't in that dome. They had that retractable roof. And that city was on fire. Recently I've gone to a Seahawk game. And what an atmosphere that is when you go see the Seahawks play. And when I sit in that crowd, I remember that was what it was like at Safeco Field in the early 2000s. And it was rocking every night. It didn't matter if we were playing the Yankees or the Red Sox on Friday night or the Pirates on a Tuesday afternoon. There was 45,000 strong, and there was an aura about it and just an electricity that you kind of can't recreate. It was the time.
There was a lot of great talent there too.
It was something I've never played in front of. I got a chance to go to the World Series in '99 with the Atlanta Braves. We were a great team. That was a great atmosphere. Cincinnati Reds, I had played on a couple really good teams in the mid '90s that went to the postseason. Didn't quite get the job done World Series wise, but some great places I played, but nothing will replace those early 2000s in Seattle. It was just a special time. I think if you were a fan back then and were going to the game regularly, they can tell you what it was like. It's kind of indescribable. I get on that top step ready to take the field, and it was like it was a rock concert every night. Really cool to be able to experience that.
Yeah, and like I said, you guys had a lot of fan. I mean, you were a massive fan favorite there, and I mean, you get Edgar, and I mean, you played with Griffey obviously through that era too, right?
I played with Junior as a kid when I first got drafted. And then I left,
and that's when he came in
Cincinnati. And then he went to Cincinnati when I ended up coming back.
So you guys never played on the same team. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we did. 92, 93.
Okay, very, very cool.
And then when I came back, no, he was gone.
Yeah. So fast forward, you retired and you said it's been 13 years now?
13 years, yeah.
How is that? And I always ask people, because it's a huge thing with sports and identities and being stuck to an identity. How was that transfer for you, that transition into retirement?
Definitely a learning experience. You find out real quick that you don't know all. I was always from the school of, once I can't play anymore at a high level, I want nothing to do with this. I want to go off in the sunset. I want to play golf. I want to go on vacation. And that's all well and good. But then life hits you a little bit. And you mentioned identity. I think that's huge, because we're wrapped up and we're known for this one thing, and it's what we do. It's not who we are. And I definitely was wrapped up to it. A lot of the guys that retire go through it. You wake up one day and playing golf is great, and going to Maui is great. There's only so much you can do that. You need something to wake up in the morning and have a purpose.
Purpose, yeah.
And a lot of us, and I was not excluded. I went through that where I was waking up going, who am I? You know, I know what I did. I know what my career was. Those numbers are in the books. They're never going away. But who am I, and what am I going to do the second half of my life to have a positive impact on people?
Yeah.
And I kind of was lost for a little bit. I went to the Oakland A's and I did a 2-year. I worked for the A's on the minor league side. Really enjoyed it, helping minor league players and just developing. And if I could give them a little knowledge of things that were successful for me and what I learned from my career, well, then I was doing my job, and I really enjoyed that. It just got to a point.
It was more on the development side, or was it on the coaching side?
All on the development. I was in uniform. I was a coach.
Okay,
I'd go to instruction.
Yeah.
I'd go to instructional ball. I'd go to spring training.
Yeah.
And then I'd work about 8 days a month. So I'd go to maybe a 4-day trip to the AA affiliate, and then I'd do a 4-day trip and go meet our A ball team and be on field and talking to these guys.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate at the time. A lot of the A's that are in the big leagues now, that was my A ball team then. So it was cool. It's cool seeing them develop and get better and then become big leaguers. You know, that's that's kind of cool for me. And it's not that anybody's got to know that I was there, but I know, and they know. And that's a cool thing to see somebody's dreams come to fruition and to think that you might've been a tiny part of that reason. You know, I don't take any of the credit, but I really enjoyed that. But I had 4 kids of my own. And it became something where it was taking too much time away. I wanted to watch my son play his senior year in high school, and I couldn't be in spring training if that were going to happen. Yeah. So I walked away from that a few years back, and then kind of more of the same. You know, I was growing up, I was watching my kids grow up, but really nothing to do. So right before COVID hit, I started thinking I'm going to get back on this side of the ledger and maybe be an analyst and do that. And I started the podcast. And my agent said, I want you to get some reps on this side of the mic and do some interviews and do this, do that. Now I do, 3 or 4 segments a week on radio throughout the country and breaking down baseball. Where it's going to go, I don't know. I might be calling games next year. I might be on a channel doing pre and post game. Who knows what I'm going to do? One day I might go back on the field. I don't know. This is my journey starting right now, and I'm having a lot of fun with the podcast, and we'll see where it leads.
How old are your children? How old is the youngest one?
Youngest one is I've got twin boys that are just turned 17. They're going to be seniors in high school, and then my oldest son Jacob just turned 22. He's playing for the Nationals, and then I've got a daughter that's 25, and she's out in the world.
So they're all young adults.
Yeah. I got 2 still under the roof.
Are those 2 still in the roof? Do they play baseball too, or no?
They do, but they're done. So their senior year, they found that baseball wasn't their thing, and that's good.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, get this education. This is a crucial part of your life, is finding out what you want to do, what you're all about. So actually right now they're off with their cousins in New York, taking in a few Yankee games and hanging out with their cousins. And they're just kids. They're 17-year-old kids. You know what they're like. They have their challenges, but at the same time, they're good kids. And I'm just here to be the best dad I can right now. That's all. This stuff is great. The TV stuff and the radio stuff and the analytical stuff, the podcast, that's great. But my number one job right now is to be the best dad I can for the last couple formidable years of my youngest life. So when they go out in the world, I can at least turn around. I can't control what happens, but I could say I did the best job I could. And that's my priority right now.
I love it. What I wasn't even going to go there, but let's go there. What does fatherhood mean to you?
I think it's something when you're in your career and you're grinding out every day, especially being a Major League Baseball player, the rigors that are put on you. You play every day. You play 162 games, and that's not including spring training. That's not including the postseason. I wish I could go back and do a few things different. I was there. I was supportive, but I wasn't able to be the father that I can be now. It just, everything was always in my mind. Who we facing tomorrow? Who we pitching? I got to get some video. I got to study. Got to do this. It was all about me, and I don't want to say it's not important. That's how I supported my family. of course it was important to have great years to get my next contract.
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to be the father that I am now, be present on a daily basis, be in each part of their lives, giving them guidance when they can. I was gone a lot. You know, when you choose that as a career, I'm gone half the time.
Yeah.
So I'm on a 10-day road trip. I'm home for 10 days. And when I'm home for those 10 days, about all I can do is get up in the morning really early, get them to school. And by the time they come home from school, I'm at work. And then they're, you know, especially when they're young, they're in bed by the time I get home after the ball game every night. So my time with my kids is minimal. But I knew that going in because I grew up in that lifestyle. You know, my dad was still playing in the big leagues when I was in AA. So he started so young and played so long that dad wasn't at any of my little league games. And he was rarely was he at a high school game. And if he could catch a college game, he would. But, you know, I really didn't have dad around to watch me. What he did for a living, I loved because, you know, we talked about earlier in the segment, I got to go to the ballpark and I got to hang out as a kid and just, wow. I mean, could it be any better? I got to ride on the 1980 when they won the World Series in 1980. I was on the float, you know, going down Broadway in Philadelphia with 1 million fans. And I was just thinking, well, this is just a normal Saturday for me. This is what we do. You know, now I see pictures of that and I go, wow, how cool, how fortunate was I growing up? So the fact that dad wasn't there, that was just normal. That was our life. Mom did an unbelievable job raising us. And we knew, hey, dad's coming home. And because not only myself, but my brothers were so into baseball. And as soon as dad got home, it's like, all right, Phillies are in town for a week, so we get to go to the ballpark. Or when we lived in Southern California, we got an Angel game tonight. So, you know, I'm going to be the ball boy down the right field line. So as much as dad was gone all the time, I got to spend a lot of time with him at the ballpark, at his place of work. So very unique situation, but mine was a little different. You know, the kids didn't have the access to coming to the ballpark with dad like they did in the 70s and the 80s. The rules have changed a little bit from a liability standpoint. You know, some of the owners said, wait a minute, I can't have these kids running around on the field because if they get hurt, I'm in trouble. When I was a kid, it was carte blanche. You know, I was out there taking ground balls with Larry Boa, and everybody'd say, oh, he can handle himself, don't worry about it. You wouldn't see that today in a big league atmosphere, but I got in before they got privy to and smart about it. So I had the ultimate kid experience.
I love it. I love it. There's how long have you been married for?
I got divorced 7 years ago, but I was married 18 years. Yeah, I was married 18 years, and you know, the kid's mom lives about a mile from me, and we split custody. We have the kids 50-50, and we have a good relationship and a good rapport. So, you know, life happens, and you know, you wish you could change things and stuff like that didn't happen, but it does. But the kids have adjusted to it. We're doing the best job we can at co-parenting, and you know, life goes on. But I think the kids have turned out pretty good so far.
I love it. I love it. This is one thing I've really toned in the last while. And it's something you keep dipping into is as we get older, we kind of realize time is a currency. And you start appreciating time more. And like you said, with your children and stuff, you start appreciating time more. And when you're younger, there times abundance, you live with this mindset of no regret. And as you get older, you have little regrets and stuff like that. How is your mindset now when it comes to like when you're looking at your son or advice you give your son that hopefully makes into the majors about just appreciating the time and understanding and all that? Would you give him any different advice, that things that you wish you changed?
Man, I was such a different personality than my son or even my brother, or my father. I was kind of that guy that get out of my way. I'm going to the big leagues. No one's getting in my way. I had blinders on, and I thought I was the greatest thing in the world. And if you weren't sure, just ask me. I'd tell you. My son is not like that. He's just really a smart. You know, you mentioned earlier, he got a Princeton degree, and he's starting A-ball. So he's an intellect. He's very smart. He's very humble.
What position does he play?
He's a shortstop.
Shortstop. Okay.
So he's him and myself, we're apples and oranges. We're oil and water. You know,
Yeah.
we're not the same guy. He's a very calculated, studious. And like I said, he's an intellect. He's very humble. Where I wasn't so much. I was whatever. What do I need to qualify to get my, to get the grades I need to stay on the field to get to the next level? And then when I got to the next level, get out of my way because I'm going to the big leagues and I really don't care. And people have said I was cocky. I probably was, but I didn't know. And that's the thing that's so fun about my life was when I was 18. When I was turned 25 years old, I would take a look back at me at 18 and I would laugh at that 18-year-old like he had no clue what was coming, because the big leagues will humble you. They will beat you down and show you, wait a minute, it's not as easy as you think. And it's the guys that can get up off the mat and continue are the guys that achieve and play for a long time. But I look back at, when I was 30 years old, I look back at that 23-year-old, laughed and go, if he only knew what I knew now. And I'm still doing that to this day. I'm 52 years old and I look back at that 35-year-old guy going, you have no idea what's coming when you retire. And let me be that guy to help you and say, no, get into something right away. It's not normal to retire at 37 years old. You're going to have some bumps in the road. Yeah. So I'd love to always give that younger me advice, but that's life. And I think we all would. The advice I give to my son is prepare as much as you can. Be as disciplined as you can. And when it comes to your training and your diet, try to find an edge however you can. I believe in, if you think you're great, you are great. I think when you set out to do something, you're steadfast with it. You don't waver. So that means if we set up a diet for the off season, we don't cheat. We don't have one Diet Coke. We don't have one piece of bread. We do it full Monty. So when we get to spring training, we can look around and go, I don't know if anybody else gave up and sacrificed what I just did. So I teach them stuff like that, the mental side of preparing to be the best player you can be. And the rest is up to him. It's so crazy.
Sorry, but it's so crazy. I'm sure if you look at your dad, look at your career, look at your brother's career, now look at your son, how sports, nutrition, training has evolved over the years so drastically, huh?
Oh, it's unbelievable. The kids today, the modern day baseball player, and there's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons to today's game. A lot of things I'd like to see done differently. A lot of things I envy about the players today, and the access they have to information and statistics and video. Man, it would be awesome, because I was always that guy looking for an edge and looking for some video that nobody else had and looking for nuances and tells from the pitcher. What they have today, like I said, I'm very envious. But it is much different. Now kids start training when they're 12 years old. I didn't start training until I was 28 years old. I was the beginning of what is in full force nowadays. And the athletes today, and not only in baseball, but in all sports across the board, they're just physically superior athletes than they were even 10 years ago, even 15, 20 years ago. In the early 2000s, there were a lot of really fit athletes. Yeah. But compared to 2021, no, you have to be fit to even qualify to be in the arena. Yeah. And I see these kids coming to camp right now, the minor league kids, and they're just beasts. I mean, they're all 6'4", and I'm watching second basemen, which in my day, the Robbie Alomars and myself, we're that 5'10", because you had to be a second baseman. I see DJ LeMahieu playing second base. He's 6'3", so the game has changed. A lot of ways it's for the better. A lot of ways I'd like to see them getting back to not only my generation, but my dad's generation. There is some sort of magic combo in between them all, because it's not about, oh, we were better than you and you should play like we did. No, I think the game will pass you by. You have to embrace the current product. Yeah. And I think history will judge each and every one of our generations. But I think you're best served to embrace the current player, but the current player could also learn from you. So I think there's a magic combo in there. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think we should all be seeking it.
Yeah, I love it. Where, like you said, with the podcast, let's actually give me one or two stories in your major league career that just this put a smile on your face, something that happened, whether it was an all-star game or something, just you just look back and you always have a smile when you think of that moment, one or two moments, because I think that would be great for the audience here.
Well, I think, you get asked that a lot. What was some of your greatest moments? I had so many fun times, but a lot goes back to what we've been discussing, and that's my time in Seattle. Yeah. There's a couple moments, it's my first All-Star game. Unbelievable. The first time I won a Gold Glove, it was like, man, I've been beating down this door, and finally, I should have won one 3 years ago, but you know what? It's finally here. Those are all really nice moments. The first time I played in the World Series at Yankee Stadium, it was like, whoa. I played in Yankee Stadium a lot, but I've never played in Game 3 in Yankee Stadium. And I remember going out that night. I was with the Atlanta Braves. It was 1999, and I went out for my typical 15 minutes before the game, get loose on the left field foul line, and something came over me where I wasn't hyperventilating, but I was like, I've never had this reaction before. We all have our butterflies before a big event, but this was different, and I was like, and I had to get off the line and run into the clubhouse and just kind of sit in the chair for a minute, like, whoa. This is there's certain times in my life where I could close my eyes and just knew I was somewhere special. That was one of them. Man, the stories are endless. One of the biggest things for me, and it wasn't a big hit or a big home run or a big win. Seattle 2001, they hosted the All-Star game. That particular year, we had 8 All-Stars. And it happened to be at Safeco Field during that magical year. And
do you mind me asking who else was with you? I'm thinking on the top of my head.
I'm trying to think. It was Ichiro, Edgar Martinez, John Olerud. I think Mike Cameron made his first. Our closer, Kazuhiro Sasaki. Yeah. I believe Jeff Nelson, the setup man for us that year. I can't think of who else. I think Ichiro, Edgar, myself,
Johnny
Olerud. I think we started the game.
He had a beautiful swing, man. That's a Toronto boy, man.
He was Johnny's salt of the earth. One of the best human. Not only one of the
100%.
What a great player he was. One of the best human beings I've ever been around. We had him on the podcast. He is awesome. What an awesome guy. But yeah, that was a special All-Star game, and I got I got invited to hit. And this is kind of the beginning of that, but I got invited to be a part of the home run derby. And that was another highlight for me. Like, wow, I never thought I'd get in. When I was that 20-year-old kid, I'm thinking, I just want to get to the big leagues. Now I'm lining up against Sammy Sosa in a home run derby, and what an honor. Yeah. And I remember before I went out there, I just thought, just don't embarrass yourself. Save face. I don't care if I win. I just want to get through it and give the fans a good showing. And they announced my name, and I got in the box, and the standing ovation that the city of Seattle gave me that particular time, when my name's announced every day, 4 days of, 4 times a night in a Seattle home game. And I always get a wonderful reception. But the home run derby at the All-Star game at Safeco Field in 2001 gave me goosebumps, and I'd never had them on a field before. And I had to step out of the box and go, wow, that was special. And I ended up hitting 3, and I hit a couple in the upper deck, and Sammy ended up hitting 3, and he moved on because he had more home runs for me at the break. I think they were still trying to figure out the logistics of it then. Yeah. I didn't care. I just remember that moment and go, wow, that's one of the coolest moments I've ever had in my career. And it had nothing to do with anything I did, or a home run, or a game we won, or a nice play. It was just a moment where I felt the appreciation that I'd never felt before. And that always stands out to me. It's a weird thing, but it's the one thing that it really is on the top of my mind whenever I'm asked that question.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So your podcast, you've had some, like, I was going through your list of your guests. I mean, you've had some really high level athletes on your podcast, and big names, some Hall of Famers. Of all the guys you've had on, is there one or two? I always ask 2 when I talk to other podcasters, stories that you're just like, wow, that was like just a cool little interview, or cool something I didn't know about that person. Is there anybody that just really pops in your head that you had on?
Well, I usually enjoy the sportscasters or the writers.
They have the best. They have the
just
best stories, huh?
yeah, I had Tim Kirchin on recently and Jason Stark, and I love those because first of all, they do this for a living. They talk for a living, and they always got a ton of stories because people are always asking them stories.
Yeah.
So I love doing those. I loved having Charles Barkley on because Charles is going to be Charles, and he's always got a good story for you. Reggie Jackson was great because I used to be the ball boy in Anaheim, and I'd warm him up in right field, and I'd throw the ball over his head, and he'd get pissed at me. And I was, 16 years old, and now we can relive that, and through my career of seeing him when I'd go play the Yankees, and he'd be leaning on the cage, going, "Come on, Boone." Those are fun times. Having Mike Schmidt on was great. He's talking about changing my diaper while we're on the podcast. My mom was one of my favorites. My all-time favorite, though, and this is just for me, because I always like to be challenged baseball-wise. And I found that there's not too many things I can't debate. We're always learning, but Mike Scioscia, who is the former manager of the Angels.
Of course. Yeah.
Former catcher for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And he really made smart points that made me think about the game when he played in the 80s through his managing career in the early 2000s up until 2019. And he was the first one that explained analytics and data of the game and how they came to be and what works and what doesn't work. And I remember sitting there listening to his answers going, I've never heard it put that way before. And it really makes sense if you think about it. He was talking about the micro and the macro. And it was really intriguing to me because I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And he really explained it to me. I don't know if he'd be the most interesting for sports fans out there, but for me, if you can make me think about the game of baseball and the nuances of baseball, I'll have you on the podcast for 5 hours straight, because that really is what stimulates my mind.
You still have the love of the game so much in you, huh?
Oh, I love it because
it's crazy. I've become good friends with, I don't know if you know him or you talk to him, Shea Hillebrand. I've been helping him with his business. I've done stuff. Yeah. So I've built a relation with him. We're part of a board together and stuff. So I've become friends with him. And he has the opposite effect. Like he'll very openly say like how it was his best thing he ever did was when he kind of cut out baseball from his career, from his life, right? And he went through a very dark time, and so it's just hearing the different sides. And he had the dad that was pushing him to play baseball, and he felt he had that negative effect with his dad, and so he has a great story. And just looking at you when you're talking about like everything about you have a glow to your face every time you talk. It's like you have this excitement. It's like a little kid in the baseball field still. It's like you still have that excitement, which I love, and it's just so precious. Which shows realistically you're somehow going to always be involved in the game one way or another, right?
Well, I never. You talk about Shea, and he had a different experience than me. I had a big league grandpa and a big league dad, and I never felt 1 ounce of pressure to ever play this game. It was introduced to me. Here's a glove, here's a bat, here's a ball. And from the time I can remember, that's all I ever wanted to do. And it was never pushed on me. My parents never pushed it on any of the kids. It was like, here, it's kind of cool if you like the game, but we're going to support you in whatever you do. I tried to do that with my kids. I'm going to support you, and I hope you choose baseball. But if not, I'm going to be there for you no matter what you do. So I felt no pressure growing up. I had a time, though, when I retired where I wanted nothing to do with the game, like screw baseball. It's been my whole life. Now I kind of have a different appreciation and a different.
Why do you think you felt that way?
Look at it. I don't know. It's kind of like when you retire. I think when you're playing, you think you kind of almost have a Superman mentality. At least I did.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm invincible and I'll play baseball forever. And the stats say that at 35, as a second baseman that has this many miles on your legs, this is when you're going to start to go downhill. And my argument to that was, no, I'm different. I train different. My body's different. I'm gonna outsmart Father Time. And I think when it finally hits you and your age starts to catch up with you and you can't respond, and your body doesn't work like it does when you're 30 years old. Now all of a sudden you're 37 and reality hits you a little bit like, wow, all the stories that were told to me by veteran players when I was young, now I know what they're talking about. Now I know why Barry Larkin would walk through the locker with ice from head to toe, and I'd look at him and laugh. And he'd go, one day, kid, one day you'll see. And then my day came. And it's not that I was bitter or angry about it, but I really was in a bubble where I thought, no, I'll play forever. And all of a sudden it's like age is catching up with you. This is a young man's sport. You know, sports at the highest level is a young man's sport. It's youth. Yeah. And you start to lose that youth. It's not that I was mad, but I didn't think it was going to happen. Now, if I step back as a rational adult, of course it's going to happen. Yeah. But when you're in that body and you're in the moment, your reality is skewed. And it's almost like I was pissed. Like, wait a minute, my legs don't work like they used to work even 2 years ago. What's up with that?
What age was that for you?
About 36. I went to spring training, and it felt like overnight I had aged. And I didn't do anything different. My off-season routine was the same, as rigorous as it's ever been. I felt great going into camp, and something just was different. Like I had lost something. My legs, you know, and as strong as I wanted to be in the weight room, they didn't have that youthful explosion that they used to have. You know, I try to tell people it's not that I lost my hand speed or I lost, you know, my nerve. It was like, no, my legs were gone. I didn't have that base that I've always had that I took for granted.
Yeah.
All of a sudden that wasn't there right now. That's usually what's the downfall of hitters, is their legs go. Everything else, you know, seems to be working good, but it's your legs. And I could have played. I was used to playing at a certain level. All of a sudden reality started to hit me that I can't play at that level anymore.
Yeah.
But maybe I can be a part of a team. You know, maybe I can be a 4-day-a-week guy. I didn't like that, because I was always said, when I can't play second base anymore, I move on. And I had a different outlook on life now. If I would go back, I would have a different approach to that. But I was having a tough time accepting playing 4 days a week. No, if I'm going to do that, I want to go home. Taking the field 9 innings a game wore me out. When I was 36, 37 years old, it's like, wow, this is hard. It's something I've taken for granted my whole life. So I had some peace when I finally retired, because I knew that age has gotten me and I wasn't what I used to be. And I was okay. I could look in the mirror and go, no, I'm not that guy I was even 2 years ago. So I was all right. I accepted that. But there was a part of me that kind of was like, screw this if I can't play baseball anymore. I'm going off and doing my own. And I went down some dark avenues where I didn't care. I didn't watch games, you know, and I wasn't as good as a dad as I could be. It was all about me. I went through a selfish time where I was kind of mad at the game because it kicked me out when really it didn't. Father Time did. But I've got a new lease now, and it's just kind of like,
Does somebody or someone or some moment just flip it, or it was just a matter of time? Just like time heals all.
I think my kids. I love it. I love it. And being able to be a present father on a daily basis, and maybe have that little impact on their life, and really come to a realization that this is we get so caught up in material things and what I used to do and who I was and great years that I had. That's all not important. I mean, it's important. You know, everybody's finances are important.
Yeah.
But there was something that came over me that said, no, the most important thing I can do is be the best dad I could be. And that happened to, 4 or 5 years ago for me. And I just went, wow, all this stuff that we all chase as human beings, and naturally as human beings, we're built that way.
Yeah.
They are important, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not even close to what's really important. Having those kids, knowing that you're there for them, no matter what, supporting them to the end, trying to put them out in the world as the best young adults you can possibly do. Once we let them go and they're done, they get their college degree and they move out, man, let's go. I hope you do well. But I want to be able to another mirror thing. Look in the mirror and say, I did everything I could possibly do. And now, it's in God's hands in my eyes. So I don't know. I just came to a realization, and I made some lifestyle changes and just got back to what's really important in life. And that's family.
I love everything you're saying. I don't know if you did any research on me or saw anything, but I've been an entrepreneur for 26 years. I run a whole bunch of companies, properties, stuff like that. But I'm also an author. I got a number one selling book back there, Entrepreneurial Dad. That's a huge passion of mine. I coach entrepreneurial dads, and
Okay.
I teach them to live with no regrets. I teach them to how to build memories. I teach them to understand that time is a currency and all that stuff like that. So everything you're saying, I love it, and I appreciate, because a lot of people don't really understand that. I mean, there's stats out there that they say 90% of the face time you spend with your children are before the age of 18. And crazy when you think of those things, right? And as a dad, and when you do get older and you start, like I just recently, and I talked about it all the time, I just recently 10 weeks ago lost my dad, and it was very sudden. He was my best friend. Like my dad was, I'm the 44-year-old that would call my dad 3 times a day. Like I would call my dad to say goodnight every night. And so you appreciate and you understand to live with no regrets, right? Because shit happens in a blink of an eye. So I appreciate that you had that opportunity to come to a realization, and you do understand how important family is, because man, as an entrepreneur, like money comes and goes. We all know that. And the end of the day, it's just the legacy you want to leave with your family. I'm going to ask you a question. In a few words, how would you want to be remembered or described by your loved ones when you're not here any longer? Something were to happen to you. Kind of like a living eulogy.
Yeah. And you're right. Because we all have that and sometimes it's earlier for us than others. Some guys realize this much earlier than I did. I think for my loved ones, he was the best dad he could be. He was there for me. I could rely on him no matter what. That's what's so cool about now. And with my friends, family, they know if they call me, they can count on me. They know if I say I'll be there, I'll be there. And that wasn't always the case for me. And I wouldn't blow people off, but I just wouldn't show up. Now, the Bret Boone of 2021, and it doesn't even matter. You're a friend. You're somebody that needs help. You're someone that I told you I'd be there. I'll be there. I'm reliable of a father, as a partner, as a friend as I could possibly be. As far as how I'd want to be remembered baseball wise, someone that brought it every night. And it didn't matter who we were playing, and it didn't matter the score, and it didn't matter our record and where we stood in the league. I was bringing the same thing every night. I always say this, and I say this to my son, and he doesn't have a problem with this because everybody really likes Jacob. I was the polarizing guy. You love me or hate me. But I always tell them this. Doesn't matter the opponent. You're out there for blood every night. I'm out there to kick your butt. When it's all over, we can give each other a hug, whatever. But for those 3 hours every night, I'm not your friend. I don't want to be your friend. I don't care if you love me or hate me, but you're going to respect me. And the way you get respect is how you go about your business, how you carry yourself as a professional. That's what I look to for my dad. People ask me a lot of times, what'd you learn from your dad? It must have been great. You grew up in this life. Dad didn't teach me one thing about baseball as a kid. But I'll tell you what, he taught me how to carry myself as a man. He taught me how to be a professional. He taught me how to walk into a room as a Major League Baseball player and do it right. Not verbose, not with an ego, but as a professional. And that's what I want to leave for my kids, that Dad was a lot of things. He did a lot of things. He's crazy and he's outside of the box. And my personality can be a bit polarizing, but he'd do anything for anybody, and he was there for us.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Is there anything else you want to leave with our audience today?
No, it's been cool. It's kind of been a little bit of a different, my life. I'm doing so many podcasts these days. It's like I'm getting into everybody else's life. And it's kind of been cool for me not to talk about myself. We're always talking about somebody else. But this just brings me back. And these questions just bring me back and remind me on what is important. Because when I start talking about it, I realize that I'm going down the right road here. And this is right.
You are.
And obviously my passion, my material passion is baseball. I mean, I've been doing it since I'm this big. That's all I know. And that's all I'm an expert at is baseball. And I love it. And I want to grow the game. And I got a lot to give to this game. But it really, just talking about this on this podcast briefly here, it reminds me how important my real job is. And that's being a good guy and a good person, a reliable person. And I've already covered all this, but it's cool. It's a reminder.
I love it. I love it. I love it. How could our audience get a hold of you? How could they listen to your podcast? Give me information if you want.
The podcast is pretty simple. It's on all the normal, platforms, Spotify and Apple. And
do you guys have it on YouTube as well? Do you do the video?
We don't have it. I do not use a video. But the simple way is I've got a website. It's bretboonepodcast.com. It's got, I don't know how many we're up to now. I think we got 70 or 80. And you go on there and it's pretty easy. You walk through, you can listen to anyone you want. They're all pretty cool. So, that's about it. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I don't even know my handles. I've got one of those check marks though.
I love it, brother. I love it. Thank you so much. I'm going to put on all our show notes how to get a hold of Brett, how to watch, download and listen to his podcast and all that stuff like that, and check out his website. So I appreciate you, brother.
All right, Jeff. Thanks for having me, man.